So we're going to begin the urban game. Here is your kind of code for your village. So as you're kind of drawing on your white sheet of paper, these are the codes I want you to use. If you're going to add things as we get going and there's things that you see that are not in the key, please feel free to add them to your map and to your key, okay? So at this point, you should be done with this section. You need to draw the river connecting east to west. The river should be about 1 inch wide. So just estimate if you don't have a ruler. Draw a simple wooden bridge crossing the river. Only one wooden bridge, please. Draw 2 roads, one running north and south, crossing the river at the bridge, and one running east to west. Neither road need to be straight. And draw 10 houses, 1 church, 1 cemetery, 1 store, 1 pub, 1 coal mine, and at least 50 trees. So go ahead and pause the video here and get those drawn in. I'm going to tell you a story about rural England. I want you to kind of imagine what this was looking like as I read you this story, and then we're going to begin the round after I tell you the story. Also, as I read the story to you, I want you to really focus on population, things you know about population, the demographic transition model, agriculture, and cities, and the development of cities, all things that we've talked about so far in this course. So let's begin our story. Life here in our rural English village is similar to other villages throughout Europe in the 18th century. Change traditionally comes very slowly. People move at a much slower pace and had access to very little information about the world outside of their village. London, England's largest city and one of the 2 real cities in Europe, had a population of about 750,000 in 1750. 3 out of every 4 Englishmen were rural and lived in small villages like this one. The average village was inhabited by about 200 to 400 people. The tallest structure in the village was the church. The religion of England is Anglican. Home life and work were closely integrated, as much work was done in a nearby field or in a home or perhaps adjoining workshops. The family was an economical unit as well as a social unit. Every member of the family worked very hard from sunup to sundown. Even small children had chores. The home of villagers were very small, with earthen floors and inadequate lighting and ventilation. All members of the family slept in the same room and sometimes shared living quarters with livestock. Sons worked with their fathers farming and tending livestock, while daughters worked with their mothers cleaning, cooking, sewing, and doing other domestic chores. Life expectancy was slightly over 40 years of age. Most people married in their teens and had babies before they were 20. It was common for women to die during childbirth, so the average marriage lasted about 15 years. Stepmothers and stepfathers were common. 1 baby out of 3 died before their first birthday. Only 1 child in 2 saw their 21st birthday. Before we go on, I just want you to remember what we talked about in population. The life expectancy is so very low because so many people died in childhood and infancy. If you made it out of childhood, your chances of living past 40 are quite strong. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Unlike France, the English were not rigidly divided into social legal estates. However, there was a distinct social class system. Most English were poor farmers. A few were middle class, like the bourgeoisie of France. They lived for the most part in London. Still, a few were aristocrats and usually owned large tracts of land in the English countryside. For both peasants and aristocrats, the soil was the key to the economy. Land was the source of the livelihood and well-being. Having enough land to produce adequate food or to produce enough to sell or even to rent was the key to economic survival. Traditions concerning land guided daily living. These traditions were designed to ensure the stability and welfare of the greater community. Hence, marriages and inheritance were geared to maintaining family property intact. Marriages were always arranged by parents to maintain or better the economic status of their sons or daughters. Not all could get married, however. A man had to generally own land on which to support a family before he dared to marry. It was not uncommon for men to wait until their 30s when they inherited property from their parents, which enabled them to marry. If a woman did not bring land into the marriage, she had to have some kind of dowry. Daughters who inherited property from their parents had to pass it to their husbands. All land was given to the eldest son, while younger sons might receive cash payments or wait for their older brother to die. The main occupation of England was farming. Private and public lands were not separated by fences as they are today. Every village had a public area called the commons. This land, which was available to anyone for pasturing, hunting, and gathering of firewood, growing of crops, etc. So for poor farmers who did not own their own land or rented could eke out a marginal living by depending on the commons. Unlike France, most English peasants or farmers did own their own land, however small. Villages were connected by a system of dirt roads that became almost impassable during the wet season. As a result, transportation was often slow and trade beyond the village was not easy. Most English farmers never visited any place further than 25 miles from their birthplace ever. People made their own clothes, food, furniture, tools, and homes. A few items which could not be produced could be obtained from wandering peddlers who also brought with them some news. Finally, for fuel, there are two sources, firewood and coal. Nearly every English village had a coal mine operation. These mines employed a small number of village dwellers, especially in the winter. Coal pits from which coal was extracted belonged to the owner of the property where the coal mine was situated. Over the next 100 years, a revolution as significant as the Neolithic Revolution, when early man turned from hunting and gathering to agriculture, will completely change the life in your village. Some historians believe this revolution, the industrial, is the most fundamental change in human history. We will experience some of these changes over the next 2 days. So we are to round one. It is now 1745. England's geography is unique in that no section of the country is more than 90 miles from the sea, and there are many navigable rivers that crisscross the country. An enterprising young capitalist, you, decide to invest money in the construction of a canal. This is not a public venture, but rather a private one. The profits from your canal are astonishing. For example, one canal built in 1745, the Oxford Canal, yielded a 300% annual return for its investors for a period of more than 30 years. This new revolution in transportation reduced the price of raw materials and reduced the cost of transportation drastically. Coal could now be transported from the mines to the towns for half the price of horse and wagon transportation. Since you invested your money, thereby making a tidy profit, build yourself one nice home anywhere on the map you would like it to be. Don't forget to construct the canal. It must run parallel to your city. So you're going to pause the video here and draw in your nice new house and your canal. Don't forget there are guidelines for what these should look like. Okay, so here's our guidelines. A house and a canal need to be added. Please pause the video and draw in those two items. Round two. It is now 1750. For a variety of different reasons, soap, diet, sanitation, there is a population explosion in England, and your village, there's a population explosion in England and your village, The cursed bubonic plague, which for centuries wiped out your village, has become virtually eliminated to the disposal of sewage in the canals, and then ultimately the ocean. Add 5 houses. Now you have a total of 15 houses. Pause the video to add your 5 new houses. Round 3. It is 1760. The people of your village need a bit more food and goods to meet the needs of the new inhabitants. Coincidentally, a number of other noteworthy events occur around 1760. First, a number of new mechanical inventions for farming are developed. Perhaps the greatest impact was Jethro Tull's creation of the seed drill and the horse-drawn cultivator. This should sound familiar to you from the agricultural unit. Also, farmers began to experiment with new, more productive farming practices like crop rotation, new fertilizers, and new livestock breeding techniques. Coincidentally, farm production is significantly increased, but there's one problem. Most farmers own one tract of land. Why should they, or how could they, invest in expensive machinery when their land is so small? What's more, it's almost impossible to buy land from anyone. At the same time, pressure is placed on Parliament by large and small landowners, farmers, to make more land available. Where is this land coming from? The Commons, of course, a series of laws called the Enclosure Acts are passed by Parliament. This means that landowners can buy pieces of the common land from the government, fence off an area 3 by 3 inches to be reserved as a commons. So fence off, which I forgot to make red, fence off an area of 3 by 3 inches to be reserved as a commons. Add 5 houses and 1 nice house. Okay. I'm going to do that now while you guys are doing this. So give me 1 second. So you're going to fence off 1 3 by 3 inch area reserved as the commons. If I can remember how to do it. Underlined. Oops, I forgot the F. Okay, so fence off an area 3 by 3 inches to be reserved as the commons. Add 5 houses for a total of 20 and 1 nice house. Go ahead and pause the video and add those in. Round 4. It is now 1773. A man named Richard Arkwright invents a new machine that can spin and weave cloth 100 times faster than could be done by hand in a farm cottage. The most common way of producing cotton cloth up to this point, the cottage industry, the putting up system. These are vocab words. He calls his new machine the water frame because its principal source of power was water. Let's imagine that the first water frame was built in your village because of the river. Since the water frame was large, a special building was needed, and thus the first factory for producing cotton cloth was built. Add 1 factory, no smoke, it is powered by water. Remember, the cotton factory must be placed on the riverbank. Canal water is not swift enough to generate the power to working the parts of the water frame. So you need to put the factory on the water. Don't add any smoke to this factory because it's powered by water. Also add 5 houses for workers for a total of 25 houses. Go ahead and pause the video. Round 5 and our last round of today. It is now 1774. Workers are needed to work in this new factory. Since many people, women, cannot compete with the spinning and weaving of cloth made in the factory, and there are large numbers of poor families who have lost their livelihood due to the Enclosure Act, we do have an available supply of workers. People move to your village to find work. At 15 houses, total 40, 1 church, 1 pub, and 1 store. You may draw additional roads and 1 additional bridge. So you're going to pause the video. Actually, this is the end of the video. We're going to stop at round 5 and we will finish all the rest of the rounds tomorrow. Okay. Do not lose this paper. Keep it someplace safe. Tomorrow, we're going to start with round 6. All right. So make sure you're adding your 15 houses for a total of 40, 1 church, 1 pub, 1 store, and you may draw additional roads and 1 additional bridge. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Can't wait to see how these turn out.